Hello everyone, welcome back for another edition of Virtual Yin Yoga. I'm your instructor Mike. I'm happy to have you with me this evening. What we're going to do today for our practice, by request, some of you who are regular watchers have asked to do more everyday yoga. So just a couple of poses that I would recommend you do every single day, more for maintenance of the body, hips and spine, right? These are areas we need to stretch routinely. So I want to make sure I throw out at least those 3 poses that I recommend every day for our practice. So go ahead and grab whatever props you need. If you need a yoga block, straps, any kind of prop, blocks, towels, a blanket, yoga mat obviously if you got it. When you got it, come back and join us in this practice. But when you are ready, you can go ahead and close your eyes. And just take a moment here, laying down on your mat, focusing on your breathing, low in the belly, low in your diaphragm. And if you want to double check if you're doing that correctly, place a hand on your stomach below your belly button. You feel the stomach expand when you take an inhale, it will contract when you take an exhale. This is belly breathing. It's the breathing technique that I always recommend for Yin Yoga. It's a technique that helps slow things down, and this practice is slower paced. So we want the body to be in unison with our practice. And why don't we just take this first minute in silence just to focus on the breath. Take a few deep breaths, and when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And we'll start our practice off laying on our back. We're going to cradle the legs, rock up and down on your spine. You go side to side, make circles. Just use your intuition here. There's no right or wrong in how you approach this particular bit of the practice. It's more just for waking everything up, right? Waking up those hips and spine. With our first pose, we're actually not going to go too far. We're going to continue to lay on our backs. But here's the routine we're going to go through today. We're going to do a twist to each side. We'll do a forward bend. We'll do a back bend. We'll play around a little bit with the forward bending options, though. I'll give you a couple of choices there. When you feel ready, when you feel warmed up and good to go, we're going to start this off with a twist, reclining twist. So this means you're going to lay on your back, bring your knees up to the chest, take your legs over to a side and just lay them on the floor, right? This is going to be your pose for right now. The intention of the twist is to stretch the side body and rotate the pelvis, right? That's what's really happening here. When you're not necessarily laying flat here, right? Your shoulders will probably come up, at least that back shoulder. If it does, don't worry about it. It's not the point, so don't try to force to get down there. But the inclination of your spine, right, is to literally twist, right? We're like wringing ourselves out, I like to imagine. With it, again, side body stretches. Now, if you're in this and you're saying, you know what, it actually feels like it's more directly in the back of my hip. It's not this broad side body stretch he's talking about. It's right here. If it feels very localized, you're overstretching something, you're going to use a block or like a pillow here to put in between your knees. A lot of times it's going to solve the issue for you. Put that prop here in between the knees, or possibly even under the bottom leg. That could help too. But we want to be able to work around that kind of pain. We don't want to push through it because it's not therapeutic. That's usually what ends up hurting you in the long run. And while you're here, just breathe, right? Just really try to relax into the pose. Some things you can do for bonuses, like upper body stretches, arms out to the T to get the chest and shoulder opener. You can always stretch your neck if you'd like to by looking away from your legs. So just for reference here, I'm twisting left. So if I turn my head to the right, I start stretching my neck, my cervical spine. But if you want to stretch more of your chest and shoulder, you have the arms out to the T here. You could always look with your legs. So if your legs are going left, you turn your head left, it's going to open up that right shoulder a little more. Feel free to do all of them, or honestly, none. You don't have to do any. Some people just prefer to have that neck directly in the middle. It just depends on what you need today, right? Every day we do this, it's a little bit different. And the whole point of doing an everyday yoga practice is to tailor the practice around what the body is telling you. You know, if it's saying, yeah, I need to stretch my neck, then do it. I need to stretch my shoulder, do it. You need to stretch everything, well, do that too. And let's breathe here for this last minute. When you're ready, you're going to slowly unwind from your twist. Take your time on out. Right? Just relax here for a moment. Laying down will probably feel really nice. So you can lay flat if you'd like to, or some people will bring their knees up to the chest and cradle legs. I really don't mind what you end up doing here. When you're ready, we're going to do the other side. So laying on the back, knees up to the chest, legs over to the other side, and you'll lay them on the floor, and again, here is your pose. We didn't really go through any modifications with the legs, and there's a reason for it, right? We're not going to go too deep into this practice. This is, again, more just for your daily maintenance, so we're just going to worry about just generally twisting and rotating the pelvis like so. But we did talk about where we're supposed to stretch, like the side body, possibly the outside of your leg. Your glutes might feel it. You might want to use a block here if you're not really feeling that, if it's more in the back of your hip, right? Anytime it feels like you're stretching a literal joint, you're overstretching something, so don't do that. Use a block or pillow, put it in between your knees, under the bottom leg, both if you have a couple of them, right? That can help work around that. And we talked about arms out to the T, right? Get this chest and shoulder opener going on here. It's always an option. Or you can always stretch your neck by looking away from the leg. So again, for reference, I'm twisting right. So if I turn my head left, that would work my neck. But if I wanted to stretch my chest and shoulder more, I would look with my legs. So I would just turn my head right and keep getting that shoulder opener for that left chest and shoulder here. But you don't have to do anything. You know, for me on the other side, I really kept my neck in the center. I just felt like relaxing a little bit more here this particular session. So, right, whatever you need. I don't know what that is for you. And the only time you're really going to know is if you're listening to your body. That's so critical for us. You know, a lot of us, we don't really listen to our body unless it's screaming at us. And by that point, it's almost too late. But the good news is, if you start paying attention early, you can prevent those kind of ailments and injuries, right? That's what yoga is really all about. It's about prevention of a lot of injuries. But if it is happening, you know, it's not too late to treat it. This is a great way to help. And it's one of the most effective that, you know, something I've really come to wholly believe and experience for myself, to notice that all these injuries I used to have are working away. But it takes time, right? It takes, months and years to heal some of these deeper injuries. But the good news is, again, it is something that is possible, and you can do it as long as you have these two qualities: persistence and patience. Go ahead and take a few deep breaths, and when you're ready, there's the time. You're going to slowly unwind from your twist. You take your time on out and do what you need, right? Just lay down if you want to, cradle legs, it's up to you. You got a minute. The next thing that we're going to do, it's going to be a forward bend. And I'm going to give you at least 3 choices. It's going to be up to you, but out of these 3, I would recommend you only do one of them, since we're going to only have time for one forward bend. But again, 3 options for you to work with. The first one is butterfly pose. Soles of the feet brought together in front of you, following and rounding the pose best you can. It's inner thighs and backs, target areas here. Something to always be mindful of if you're in this pose and you say it's actually knee pain or it's hip pain, back of the hip, it's too localized, you're probably going to want to do something like dragonfly pose, where you spread out your legs and you lean forward, right? Inner thighs, back. You do get a bonus hamstring stretch. So this one is inner thighs, hamstrings, and back. But there is one more option that I will suggest to you. It's called caterpillar pose, where you have both legs out in front of you and you're leaning forward. I'll show you from the side here. Actually, this is going to be the pose that I'm going to do for myself today. You lean forward, you grab something here. Now that could be anything. It could be the knees, shins, ankles, around the feet, toes if you can grab them. It's not a competition, so if you can't, don't worry about it. It's not the point. The point is to feel the back of your leg and feel your back stretching nice and broad stretches. If you do pull back in the toes a little bit, you can get a bonus calf and Achilles tendon stretch. That's one of the unique features of this particular pose. Whichever one you want to pick, right? Find one and then stick with that. You know, it's we don't want to just do a butterfly for a minute, a dragonfly for a minute, a caterpillar pose for a minute. We would want to stick with it, and it's solely because our connective tissues, they need time to really respond to the stretch. It can take anywhere from 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes before it even yields to your stretch. So that's roughly half of it if we're going by the 4-minute stretch time. It's usually what we do here. And we want to make sure we're working it as efficiently as possible. And we're not going to do a full hour's worth of practice, 45 minutes worth of practice. More likely it's going to be about 15, 20 minutes. And I script it this way because a lot of people have a difficult time finding 15 to 20 minutes of their day to do anything. And I know if I teach an hour's worth of practice, for those people who struggle to find that time, they're probably not going to do it. So I like to ease them in to this kind of practice. I just like to give them a couple of poses to work on, do it for that amount of time, get used to that amount of time, and then when you feel like you're comfortable with 20 minutes, well, what's an extra 5? And then what's an extra 5 after that? And then so on and so forth. And before you know it, you're doing an hour's worth of practice. But I like to just kind of like hook you with a little bit of it here and there. And again, we got about 1 minute left, so just relax into this as best you can. Go ahead and take a few deep breaths, and when you're ready, there's your time. Just real slow, you're going to lean back, lay down, take the time. There, you got 1 minute, at least 1 minute. And then after this, we'll do our back bend, and then we're going to wrap this practice up. Our next and last yin posture is going to be a back bend, and it's going to be the Sphinx pose, what I recommend here. And in a Sphinx pose, you lay on your stomach, you prop up onto your forearms and your elbows. Here's your pose. And it's not a stretch or anything like that. You shouldn't feel any broad stretching. It should just be this dull pressure right there in your lower back. And the lumbar spine is really all it should be. Anything that feels sharp in your back is a sign for you to come down from the pose, right? Don't push to the sharpness. It's not going to be therapeutic for you. more likely you're just going to end up injuring yourself. Hopefully not today, but it is possible to set yourself up for an injury, and we don't want to do that. In fact, if you're ever questioning your safety here, you dial back whatever you're doing, right? Whatever it is. I try to refer us to the scale of stretching, this arbitrary scale I've come up with between 1 and 10. If 10 is your deepest stretch, we want to go for around 6 and 7. But if you're at that 6, 7 mark and you're saying, I don't know, this actually feels like it's a little too much, don't be afraid to dial it back. In this practice, less is more, right? I would rather you under stretch than over stretch. I want you to condition yourself to get used to this, like any kind of practice. You don't want to just, you can't just jump in to a marathon and run the whole thing if you're not training for it, right? Sometimes you just got to start with that first half a mile, build up to a mile. Before you know it, you're at that marathon level, but that's going to take time. It's always going to take time. So same deal with this practice. It is okay to not go 100%. I want you to trust in your experience. To say, you know what, I think I'm fine here. Or no, it's too much, well, let's dial it back. Or no, it's not enough, let's dial it up a little bit. Right? That's the sign that you are listening to your experience. And I hope that is what I can accomplish through teaching something like this. For you to be able to trust in your inner experience, because you're the only person who knows what you're going through. You know it best. And you can always have help, you can always ask for help, but until you ask for help, nobody's going to be able to help you. Right? But if you intuitively know what you need to do, then it might make it a little easier for you. When you're ready, there's your time. Real slow, you're going to lay on your stomach. Take your time here. It's going to feel nice to just relax. Now, after a back bend like that, it will feel nice at some point to do a gentle forward bend. It's one of those things, don't let me rush you at the same time. Don't let me hold you back. So you might want to do something like a child's pose while you have the time, or possibly just lay on your back and cradle the legs. Anything that's a gentle forward bend is okay. If you feel comfortable with child's pose, bending your knees like so, you might be comfortable with doing something like a squat pose. I'll show you from a few different angles. Squat pose, right? Here's from the side. Don't worry about getting the heels to the floor if you can't, right? It's not the point. You might just be too tight in your Achilles tendon, the back of your ankle here, or it might be compression. If it's bone on bone pain right here in the front of the ankle, your heels are never going to touch the floor, so don't worry about it. I'm going to show you from the front here too. Kind of looking like a little bit of a frog here. But this is another pose I would recommend you do every day. It's great to keep the mobility of your SI joints. It's one of the reasons why I do this every single day. The SI joints, the back of your hips, most people are going to deal with some pain there at some point. So this is a great way to prevent it from happening, just from a little bit of movement in your pelvis there to open those joints up. Now when you are ready, we're at the end of our practice. So for our final pose, Shavasana, corpse pose. If you'd like to do a Shavasana, you just lay on your back. But you could always sit upright like you're in meditation. It's wherever you're most comfortable, go there. And when you're there, close your eyes. There's nothing to see at this point, but more to feel, more to pay attention to. Focus on your breath, breathe low in your belly, low in your diaphragm, turn your senses, your awareness within. The last few minutes, give your body a quick compare and contrast. Observe these differences that you've made. How different do you feel right now as opposed to when you first started your practice today? no formal ending to our practice. Keep your eyes closed as long as you like. That's officially all that I have for you. I want to thank you all for watching, sharing your practice with me. It's been my pleasure. Namaste.